We've all heard it, good vibes only. It's a concept that's been circulating in spiritual circles, on social media, and in wellness spaces. It sounds innocent, doesn't it? Uplifting, positive, a reminder to focus on the light, to stay in good energy, and to let go of anything that feels negative. But beneath this seemingly harmless mantra lies a dark and insidious force, one that has silently infected the spiritual community and caused harm to countless seekers. Good vibes only has not only become a tool for spiritual bypassing, but it has also given birth to a dangerous strain of false light, one that denies the inherent complexity of the human experience and forces us to suppress the very emotions we need to heal. Today, we will talk about the harm that good vibes only has caused, how it's led to the rise of false light teachings, and how ignoring and repressing negative emotions can lead to something even darker, ego sickness. When we are told to focus only on the good, to reject or ignore the bad, we are essentially cutting off a vital part of our emotional spectrum. The shadow, that part of ourselves that holds our fears, anger, grief, jealousy, and sadness, is just as much a part of the human experience as joy, love, and peace. And yet, we are told that these emotions are to be feared, hidden, or transformed at all costs. At first glance, this seems like an innocuous push toward positivity. But what happens when we are told to only acknowledge the good and to shut down the bad? We are forced to pretend, to wear masks, to ignore the deep, uncomfortable emotions that arise in us all. We gaslight ourselves into thinking that we're not allowed to feel certain things. We suppress anger, sadness, and frustration, labeling them as low vibes, as though they have no value in our spiritual or emotional growth. This is where the rise of false light comes in. False light is the superficial, performative side of spirituality, the side that pretends everything is perfect and positive. It's the Instagram spirituality, the influencers who smile and say, "Everything is going great," all while masking the deeper, unacknowledged parts of themselves. They offer us an illusion of enlightenment, one that suggests that if we simply think happy thoughts, everything will be fine. But here's the problem. By embracing false light, we are denying the full spectrum of our being. We ignore the shadows within us, those parts of ourselves that need healing and understanding. And by doing so, we create an environment where spiritual growth becomes a performance, rather than a true journey toward wholeness. What makes it worse is that, under the guise of positive thinking, the emotional pain and struggles of others are invalidated. Gaslighting becomes a tool used by those who claim to be spiritual, especially when they say things like, "Don't focus on negativity," "You're creating your own reality," or "Just shift your mindset." These phrases, while seemingly helpful, are a form of emotional repression. They teach us to disregard real pain as something we just need to let go of or transmute. And in doing so, they rob us of the opportunity to heal properly. For the person struggling with grief, with depression, with deep trauma, hearing these words can feel like a punch in the gut. It implies that their pain is somehow invalid, that they're not trying hard enough to be positive or spiritual. It denies the complexity of the human experience. This good vibes only mentality doesn't just hurt those we're gaslighting. It also harms the one perpetuating it. When you refuse to acknowledge your negative emotions, when you suppress the very feelings that arise within you, you're not healing. You're hiding. You're putting on a mask of peace while the chaos festers underneath. And over time, this leads to something far more dangerous: ego sickness. Ego sickness is a spiritual affliction that arises from the illusion of perfection, the belief that you must always be in a state of joy, peace, or love, or that you are somehow better than others because you are more spiritually evolved. This is a sickness that comes from the need to appear enlightened without doing the deep, messy work of truly confronting your own shadows. False light teachers often cannot see this in themselves because their own egos are too inflated with their image of being spiritual or awakened. They may preach love and light, but behind the scenes, they are struggling with their own unhealed wounds, perhaps lashing out at others, unable to accept the very darkness they try to avoid. True spiritual growth requires us to embrace all parts of ourselves, including the painful, the negative, and the shadowed. Ignoring our darker emotions and forcing ourselves to maintain an image of constant happiness or good vibes only creates a fracture in the soul. This fracture leads to spiritual bypass, the act of avoiding personal responsibility and self-awareness under the guise of spirituality. It's easier to reject negative feelings than to face them head-on, but in doing so, we set ourselves up for an ego that is fragile, disconnected, and ultimately sick. We need to stop pretending. We need to stop gaslighting ourselves and each other. The darkness within us is not something to be feared. It's something to be understood. True spiritual growth requires us to accept the whole of ourselves, the light, the dark, the messy, and the beautiful. Only by integrating our shadows can we heal and rise fully into the light. So let go of the false light and toxic positivity. Let go of the good vibes only mentality. Embrace all of who you are. Recognize that emotions are not enemies to be banished, but messengers to be understood. Only then can you truly step into the power of your own magic. Healing is not about denying our darkness, it's about facing it with courage, with compassion, and with the truth that all parts of us are worthy of love. Embrace your shadows. Thank you for listening to my message about false light. Please comment below if you have any experiences with this type of spiritual bypassing. Also, please share, like, and subscribe